Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. I will be giving you book recommendations based on the movie or show you like. So I've got a whole list of movies and shows and I feel like I've curated a perfect book for those particular movies. You can disagree with me, obviously. This is what I think. I've read, I believe, all of the books. I haven't seen some of the movies I've suggested, but when I've read the books, they have been the movies or shows that everyone's like, yeah, the book is so similar to the show. That's why I've included the movie even if I haven't seen it. But it's only a couple, so that's why I'm including them. I hope you enjoy and let's get straight into my list. It's a very long list, but let's just start with the most basic one, I believe. But if you love Criminal Minds and you love that aspect of them doing a new case like every day or every week, whatever it is, every episode's a different case, then you will absolutely devour The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Such a good book series. It was so unbelievably captivating and easy to read. And yeah, every book follows, it's 4 books at the moment. I believe it's coming out with the 5th one, but it just follows a group of kids that have been recruited by the FBI, and yeah, they're kids working for the FBI, and that's literally the whole premise of it. And there's obviously lots of backstories and things like that, but it is Criminal Minds but with children, and I absolutely loved it. So if you love Criminal Minds as much as I do, because those shows are my jam, I love those kind of shows, please read The Naturals. Now this one is probably the best comparison I have. If you love Stranger Things or you're really into it, I didn't love it. The early seasons are great. It kind of starts to dwindle a little bit and it's not as good the later seasons, but nonetheless, if you really enjoy or love Stranger Things, you need to read The Institute by Stephen King. Now, I know The Institute is now also a show, but I haven't watched the show. But when I read The Institute, I was reading and I was like, this is literally Stranger Things. I'll give you like a brief synopsis. So it's by Stephen King, and a boy one day, I believe, I read this a while ago, but I believe he gets like kidnapped from his home and taken to an institute. And in this institute, they have certain people have certain different powers, and he escapes, and that's like trying to escape. There's obviously a lot more to it. But one of Stephen King's better books, I'd say, and obviously all his books are great, but that one really is great. But Stranger Things Institute, very, very similar. So if you love Stranger Things, you'll probably most likely really enjoy The Institute. Now bear with me for this one, but the next one I have is Game of Thrones with Fourth Wing. Now, never seen Game of Thrones, probably never will, but Fourth Wing. Obviously, I love Fourth Wing. And when I was reading this list to my boyfriend, he has seen Game of Thrones and he was immediately like, yeah, that is a good like comparison. So hence why I'm including it. Obviously, there's the common one straight off the bat, the vampires, the dragons. Duh. The whole point of Fourth Wing is them, well, not the whole point, but majority of the point of the book is them bonding with these dragons. They both feature high stakes military conflict, which they're like battling the whole time in Fourth Wing. Obviously, I don't know Game of Thrones, but I'm pretty sure that's what the case is. And there's brutal survival stakes and dragons. But the only difference I would probably say is, from my own knowledge, which isn't a lot, but Game of Thrones is a lot darker than Fourth Wing, specifically Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing gets like a bit dark, I'd say, but not, it's just a classic, like easy fantasy book, and it always has been, so it's obviously not going to have that level to Game of Thrones. Like if Game of Thrones had a book, which I'm not sure if it does, but it'd be, I can imagine how much darker it would be. That's like pretty basic, but that's really all there is. Next one I have is Gone Girl and the Housemaid. Now, Gone Girl is also a book, obviously, but I definitely preferred the movie. The reason I'm comparing Gone Girl and The Housemaid is because in both books, you think you know who the villain is, and it's so far from the truth, it's not even funny. And it's kind of someone else trying to sabotage the other person in both of them. No one's really trustworthy in either things. They're both thriller mysteries, and yeah, I just feel like if you really, I know The Housemaid's obviously a movie too now, but if you really enjoyed Gone Girl and you don't want to watch Story, or you watch Show and want something similar, I feel like reading The Housemaid, you could get the same kind of kick out of it. Obviously, it's not directly similar because it's completely different storylines, but in my opinion, that's a pretty clear comparison, that there's both someone you think you shouldn't trust, but it's probably not the correct person. Key Little Key. The next one I have for you, I haven't watched the show, but I recently read the book. For this show, I have two comparisons for you. I have the Bridgerton, the show, which I have never seen. I know, kind of shocking because it's such probably a show, but yeah, I've never seen it. And I'm comparing it to The Rose Bargain and Pride and Prejudice. Probably pretty obvious why I would compare it to Pride and Prejudice, but they're kind of getting set up to marry an individual, kind of regardless if they like them or not. And that is, I believe, is that similar to Bridgerton? But I would say the main thing between Bridgerton and Pride and Prejudice is the strict societal expectations, because it's that time period where you have to, women always have to be a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way. That's obviously the direct correlation. And yeah, the market for marriage. And enemies to lovers, because in Pride and Prejudice they don't like each other, and I believe the same is in Bridgerton. They both center around like huge balls and grand dresses and grand foyers, and probably a lot of people they absolutely despise but have to pretend they love. And then my other one for Bridgerton is, this one's a bit more rogue obviously, but it is The Rose Bargain. That one's a bit different because that is technically a fantasy, because so you'd be like, oh, how is Bridgerton and The Rose Bargain that similar then? But in my personal opinion it is, because it's got the up for the hand in marriage card again, of people that are just trying to sustain the societal status again, and they don't necessarily like the person they're vying to marry. And I would say that's the main comparison. The next comparison I'm going to be talking about is Gossip Girl and Magnolia Parks. Right off the bat, the main similarity between Gossip Girl and Magnolia Parks is the social life aspect. Like, they're both from quite large friendship groups with lots of drama and lots of toxicity. I would say the main two characters, there's obviously lots of main characters in Gossip Girl, but the main relationship couple in Gossip Girl is Blair and Chuck. And then in Magnolia Parks, I would say it is BJ and Magnolia, and they're both extremely toxic. And when I was reading Magnolia Parks, all I was thinking was, oh my god, you're Chuck and Blair. Which is, I know this is a common like book and show that everyone compares because it's so incredibly similar. And another thing is, I think Magnolia Parks is set in London and Gossip Girl is in New York. I could be completely wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll put it on the screen. But Blair is known to be the fashionista. Like, she's wearing all the nicest clothes, and like so are her friends, but specifically Blair. And a main part in Magnolia Parks is Magnolia's wardrobe, and it will literally say what she's wearing. Like if she's like wearing like Louis Vuitton like pumps or something, it will literally say she's dressed head to toe in this and this and this, in her Louis Vuitton shoes, you know what I mean? Like, it made a point to say what clothing items she's wearing. And they're low-key really insufferable, the characters, but like, you love to hate them and you hate to love them. So similar. Any of my recommendations, this is probably the most similar. So it's definitely, I don't know, it's definitely more toxic, I would think. Magnolia, oh, it's tough because Gossip Girl is really, really freaking toxic. They're both equally as toxic, honestly. But definitely, if you love the drama in Gossip Girl, you love the friendship aspect. They all hook up with each other in Gossip Girl. They're pretty much all hooking up in Magnolia Parks too. Like, it's very toxic up and down, but they all like love each other, and it's a big loving friendship group in the end. And there's just a lot of depth, quite a bit of trauma even, and I feel like it's the most similar recommendation I have in this whole list. The next recommendation I have is Divergent and Shatter Me. But the main common similarity is they're both YA dystopian novels, movies, like that's what they are. And Shatter Me is actually getting, I believe, turned into a TV series soon. But the main difference, I would say, is Divergent is more about action, survival, and like societal structure, because it's got the different what are they called, factions, whereas I think Shatter Me is more character driven and like romance focused. And also, well, I guess this is pretty similar in a way. In Divergent, obviously there's the Divergent that can be put into any faction and they are known as Divergent. And then in Shatter Me, some individuals have powers. So in that regard, it's also quite similar, but different. They're not, I wouldn't say overly similar, but if you love Divergent for the dystopian, weird kind of powers aspect, Shatter Me is kind of similar, just more romance heavy, which I didn't actually expect. The next one I'm going to talk about is kind of rogue. That is Beauty and the Beast and A Court of Thorns and Roses. Now, you'll be like, oh, it's a bit like, how are they that similar? But in both these stories, they follow like a fearless human girl who leaves her like poor family for like reasons to help to live in a magical estate with like a cursed beast like creature or immortal. And like that's literally how A Court of Thorns and Roses starts. Something drastic happens and she needs to save her family, so she goes and lives with this beast. Same in Beauty and the Beast. Now the main similarities, definitely the female main characters. So Belle in Beauty and the Beast and Feyre in Court of Thorns and Roses are both like fearless, like very strong female individuals, like headstrong, selfless, and like looking out for the best of those they love. And yeah, they're both forced to leave their families or kidnapped to deal with the transgressions of their family members, and like literally to save their family members they go and live with these beasts. And they're both in magical manors that are like got all these whimsical beings, and they're quite unique to them, nothing they've ever encountered before. And the obvious one is they're both initially terrified when they enter these places with these beasts, and they both end up falling deeply in love with these creatures. Now obviously in Court of Thorns and Roses there's a lot more depth to it because it's a series. Beauty and Beast is the movie, like it's got to all wrap up kind of in the same movie. Whereas in Court of Thorns and Roses, you think you know what's happening in the first book and it's completely different throughout the rest. That's the only difference, obviously, because it's a series. But this is very similar, especially when you're reading about it and you go, oh my god, I didn't actually realize how similar they were until you're looking at the information like directly next to each other. Lost and Under the Dome. Under the Dome is also a show, but I'm talking about the book by Stephen King. I haven't read the book yet, but I have it and I feel like I have enough knowledge to talk about it. I'm decently far through Lost as well, but the obvious similarity is something random is happening. In Lost, a plane crashes into this deserted island and no one knows what's happened, no one knows where they are, no one knows how to get out. There seems to be no way out. And in Under the Dome, they're under a literal dome. Now, along with Under the Dome, I have another reference for you. Yes, the Gorn series. I'm referencing this now because it's kind of in correlation with Under the Dome. Under the Dome and Lost. So Lost and Under the Dome can also go with these ones. I have Lord of the Flies, Under the Dome, Supernatural, The Society, and X-Men. All those movies and shows. I'm directly correlating that to the Gorn series. Now, the Gorn series I'm obsessed with, okay? It's probably going to be one of my favorite series of all time. But what happens in that is one day when all these kids are at school, suddenly everyone starts vanishing that is 15 and above. So anyone that's 15 and over starts disappearing and no one knows what's happening. So then all these kids have to fend for themselves and keep other kids alive. There's no one above 15 there until they figure out how to not disappear once you turn 15. So they figure that out and then 15-year-olds can stay. But there is a vortex surrounding them that they can't get out of. They don't know what's happening. They're running out of food. They're literally fighting for survival whilst also having killing each other. It's very gruesome in certain points. And then also to top it all off, a lot of the people in this place have powers. Like some people can travel from dream to dream. Some people can shoot fire out of their hands. Some people can burn people from the inside out. Some people can read minds. Like, there's lots of different powers, and they, I feel like, are very similar specifically to the Society, because in the Society, the show, parents and like adults end up disappearing and no one knows where they've gone, and the children start fighting. They're not as young as in the Gaunt series, but that's the similarity. Then in Lord of the Flies, it is children alone on this island. They start eating each other, which hasn't happened yet in Gaunt series, but I'm assuming it will. And then Under the Dome, same aspect as the vortex, like that's surrounding them. Supernatural and X-Men with the powers. So all of them very similar, and same with Lost, because it's got the eerie aspect of, I don't really know what's freaking happening. I don't know how to escape, and I don't know what is happening to individuals around me. So all those things are extremely similar, and this is probably my top recommendation for you. If you like all of those shows, then you'll probably love the Gaunt series. Now, the next one, I haven't watched the show, but I've read the book, but it is Normal People and Talking at Night. Now, they both have like a will they won't they romance between two people that are deeply in love and infatuated with one another, and potentially they get together down the line or they don't. But the main similarity is the depth of love they have for each other. But is there trauma in Normal People? Does something like happen? Because the main reason they don't end up together for so long in Talking at Night is because something traumatic happens that kind of tears them apart a little bit. And they're both kind of depressing novels, to be honest, like very melancholic, and like, yeah, and it shows each relationship from teenage years throughout adulthood, which is a crazy long time, obviously. Yeah, and they're both relationships are separated by life circumstances and timing, and they both have so much miscommunication. But when I'm reading Talking at Night, I am imagining Normal People. That is what I'm imagining. Obviously, Normal People's a book as well. They're both the right person, wrong time trope in a book, which I love Talking at Night, so maybe I should watch Normal People or read it. I haven't seen this show either. I've seen parts of it, but I know the general gist. It is Dexter and Butcher and Blackbird. The main similarity is obviously Dexter is killing people because they're bad, and the same in Butcher and Blackbird. But there's obviously more of an romantic aspect in Butcher and Blackbird, because it's about romantic relationship forming between serial killers. So they're both hunting down the epitome of the worst predators in society. So I guess they're not good, obviously, but they're doing bad for good reasons. And that's literally, I would say, the main, like, you don't really need any more discussion. Obviously, Dexter, I'm assuming, is quite messed up. Butcher and Blackbird is disgusting at parts, so that is also similar, because they're probably, I assume, both quite gruesome. The next one I have, obviously, it's more sad, but the next recommendation, like comparison, is Adolescence and Defending Jacob. Now, I know Defending Jacob is also a show. I've seen the show, haven't read the book. That's why I'm talking about it. I have watched Adolescence. So this young boy is accused of killing his classmate, and he's kind of like convincing you he's not, like, he hasn't done it, but you soon learn that, like, he hates women, like, hates them. And it's like a storyline that I haven't really watched in a show before, where he's so repulsed by women, that's why he killed this girl. And then in Defending Jacob, it is a young boy who's also accused of murdering I think it's a young girl too, actually. And yeah, they're both like quite psychological. And I feel like in both you feel so much sympathy for both of the young boys. A lot quicker in Adolescence you learn that he is in the wrong, whereas in Defending Jacob you actually never know who's in the wrong until the very end, which I quite like in psychological thrillers. But very similar in the way that they just clearly are so repulsed by women, and also they're young, and it's a lot of turmoil directly put onto their families. But I feel like it's a very good comparison. I also haven't seen this movie, I want to, but it is Miller's Girl and My Dark Vanessa. Obviously, they're similar because it's about a student-teacher relationship. Gross. Very gross. But I loved My Dark Vanessa. So, but that's direct correlation between those two. Now this one, I am die hard on this one being so similar. And I feel like if people knew that these were so similar, they would read this book more often. But it is Us and House of Hollow. House of Hollow is one of my all-time favorite books. I definitely need to rate a 6-star. Did I rate it a 6-star? Anyway, love House of Hollow. It's a very eerie book, and it's about a group of girls going missing, these sisters going missing, and when they return, they're not how they seemed before they left. Like, they've changed somehow. I believe their eye color is different. It's just very different aspects to them. No one really knows why. In Us, it's about like all these clones of these different people, and in the end, one of the people actually gets taken over by the clone, and the family doesn't really know. But I remember the end in that movie so vividly. It's the family driving away in a car, and the son looking at the mum, like looking at her like, what the hell, I don't think you're my actual mum. It's like her clone. It's so creepy. Now, I'm going to spoil House Follow for you, so. But that kind of same aspect happens in the end of the book. You find out, ooh, maybe the daughters aren't actually the daughters. Because I remember reading that flabbergasted. I was like, holy crap. I was not expecting that. Never had read a book like that. I've recommended this book so many people too. So if you love Us, or you want a similar style of media to that, please read House of Hollow. I want more people to read House of Hollow. It's such a good book. This one also, I really wish more people had read, but I'm comparing Alice in Wonderland and pretty much like any Disney movie with Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Now, Fairy Tale by Stephen King, it essentially is about a young boy who discovers a hidden door this elderly man has passed, and they were friends. Now, in this elderly man's backyard, it has a door, and it leads into this magical kingdom with all these different creatures. Literally any creature you can kind of think of, it has. And yeah, I find it very similar to the Alice in Wonderland, you know, going down the tree. And in Alice in Wonderland, low-key the creatures in that are kind of creepy to an extent, a lot of them, but they're very unique, and I feel like it's quite similar in Fairy Tale. And I'm also comparing it to a lot of other Disney movies because he's like trying to rescue a princess, and he gets trapped in a scary dungeon jail, and there's like an ogre, and there's like a troll that's scary, and it's very whimsical, magical, but eerie to an extent as well, which is, I feel like in Alice in Wonderland especially, there's an eerie aspect to it, which is why the comparison. I freaking love that too. Please watch that. Then Yellow Jackets and Lord of the Flies. I freaking love Yellow Jackets. Such a good show. It's essentially about a group of schoolgirls who are on their way to a soccer tournament, I believe, or football in America. And their plane crashes, and they're trapped in this place. There's so many seasons when they still haven't made it out in like the past, but they're trapped in this place, and eventually they start to eat each other because there's no other way to survive, and it's freaking creepy too at times. And that is directly correlated to Lord of the Flies because they end up eating each other too, and that is also children. This next one is, you probably won't get it until I explain. Maybe. It's a bit rogue, but I have Paddington and Remarkably Bright Creatures. The reason I have put these two together, it makes so much sense in my brain, because Paddington is such a whimsical, knowledgeable creature. Like, I love Paddington. He's got so much wisdom, and he essentially is giving these humans life lessons and yeah, all this wisdom that he's learned, and he's in turn giving it to other people, which I feel like is quite similar in Remarkably Bright Creatures. Because in Remarkably Bright Creatures, it is about an octopus and a human forming a relationship, kind of. Like, they have a beautiful friendship, and he is also quite knowledgeable and giving her wisdom. That's why I'm correlating them together, because I feel like when I'm thinking about them, they're very similar, which is probably why I really enjoyed Remarkably Bright Creatures too, because I just love an animal that shouldn't be able to speak or shouldn't have that much wisdom being so intellectual and just so funny, and just, yeah, it's kind of actually funny that Paddington has so much wisdom because he's so stupid so stupid at times. This one also makes sense in my brain. I have Little Women and Blue Sisters. I know Little Women's also a book, but I'm referencing the movie. Clearly, they're both centered around sisters, Blue Sisters, Little Women. They're both about very, very different sisters. Like, they're all completely different, but they all have aspects of them that they either admire in one another or share kind of in some way or another, like the same kind of interests and similarities, but they're completely different. That's the whole, and they both delve deeply into grief in certain parts of each of the media. Like in Little Women, a sister passes or gets sick, their father's gone away. It's kind of like a lot of grief in there, a lot of relationship turmoil kind of situations. Very, very similar in Blue Sisters. One of their sisters passes away and they're all dealing with this grief in very different ways, and you soon learn just how different each of these people are, but they're also sisters, so they also come together. And yeah, I just feel like they're quite similar in certain ways. Obviously very different time periods, but now I have The Sleepover Club, the show, the Australian show, and Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, because they both delve into sisterhood, like within friendship groups, and like it's located like a found family, isn't it? Like when you find a group of girls or friends that you have and you're like so obsessed with them, it's like found family. They're obviously, the storylines are quite different, but in the Sleepover Club, it's literally about a young group of girls that form a club where they have sleepovers like every week. And then Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, it's about, you know, pants that they share, traveling to each individual and how different they are, but they're also best friends. Girlhood, love that. This one I find so similar. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but I have Grand Army, the show, compared to What We Saw and The Way I Used to Be. Now, in Grand Army, it's very messed up. I really did enjoy the show, but it's quite messed up what happens. What happens essentially is a girl is assaulted by her best friends and someone sees it happening and never really does anything about it. And she's so distraught by it, and she's like, you literally saw, I'm not a liar, please tell people that they assaulted me. Then in What We Saw, pretty much the exact same to an extent. In What We Saw, what happens is a girl is assaulted and another girl wasn't at this party when it happened, but she soon discovers the boy she likes was there and saw everything happening. So she's obviously not okay with it. Do you see the correlation here? Same as The Way I Used to Be. I kind of compare it to the Grand Army because in the Grand Army, it's friendships and it's someone that she trusted did this to her. And The Way I Used to Be, it is literally, she's assaulted by her brother's best friend who she saw as family as well. So obviously all messed up, but very similar in that regard. Then I have 5 Feet Apart and Write Me For You. Now, obviously, this one is pretty clear if you've seen both of these things. In 5 Feet Apart, it's literally about a romantic relationship forming between these people that can literally only be 5 feet apart. They will probably die if they kiss or if they're too close together. And they're very, very unwell and in hospital. And in Write Me For You, it's about young people that are accepted for a trial and they form a relationship, and yeah, they're both also very sick and form a romantic bond. And when I was reading Write Me For You, I was like, I'm literally watching in my head 5 Feet Apart, because I was really kind of obsessed with both. My final one, I mainly put this in because I really wanted to see if I could find a direct comparison between The Dry, the book, and a show. And Brody actually gave me this one, which I believe is quite good. And that is Mayor of Easttown and The Dry. Now, the main correlation between these two is they're both set in small towns, and in both of them there's a specific individual that's trying to uncover what's happened and who was the reason for a murder. That's literally both of them. I loved both of them. Dry is definitely my favorite Jane Harper book, and obviously it's a movie, I know, as well. But Mare of Easttown, yeah, it's the exact same kind of premise. It's very different plot lines, obviously, but if you want a kind of similar feeling that you got from watching Mare of Easttown, like the small town, honestly, a lot of the characters are quite lovable in Mare of Easttown, and I'd say it's quite similar in The Dry, or at least you don't really know who to trust in either. So that's also quite similar. And also the main person that's trying to discover who the real villain is, they're both so lovable. Like, I love the main guy in The Dry and I love the main woman in Mare of Easttown, so they're quite similar in that regard too. But mainly the murder aspect and the small town and the main character trying to fight for justice. So they are all my recommendations for you for movie/TV shows that I believe if you liked them, then you'll love these books. If you have any of your own recommendations, I would love to see them, so please comment them below. I hope if you loved any of those shows or those movies, then you'll love the book just as much, and vice versa. But thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!